I Don't Know Yet is not affiliated with any specific 12-step fellowship. The content put forth are the thoughts, opinions, and experiences of the host and guests. It is meant to be suggestive only and is in no way a reflection on how to work the steps in any fellowship or how to work any other recovery program. Okay, we're back. Welcome, my plaid matching friend, Nicole. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm really excited about this episode.
I am very pumped.
Yeah, I'm really excited. For anybody who doesn't know either of us, we're pretty good friends in the rooms. We connected right away. I would like to start, because it just popped in my head, how excited I really was when you got to the rooms. I think it may have been your second time. Maybe it wasn't. But I remember the first time I heard you speak. And, you know, with newcomers coming in the room and sharing, some are beautiful and some are lost. And that's normal, right? But I remember we were having an outside meeting. We had like a little microphone and all these things. And I had no idea who you were. I think I was sharing. And you shared and you made me cry. And it was just this. You were just this beacon of light, even though you were standing there being like, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm hopeless, but I'm here. And it was just really beautiful. And to be able to see how far you've come and how much you've grown. And you're just this inspiration in our home group. And I fucking love you. And I'm just really excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Of course.
I'm a little heart happy.
I know. It's really cool, right? Being able to be a part of something like this where we get to see the miracle happen, right? It's just really beautiful.
Yeah, in real time. And to watch that progression happen in people. It's a gift.
Best high ever.
Yes.
Best high ever. So I guess today we're going to be talking about a couple of things. Main focus is what bottoms can look like and how we found a higher power to help us through that. So let's talk about you first, right? Tell me about how many bottoms did you have? How did you get there? How did it make you feel? Tell me a little bit about your experience.
Ooh, okay. So with regards to how many bottoms, I think it was just a slow progression downwards, right? So I have struggled with depression and various mental health issues for a large portion of my life. I have some childhood trauma that I think informed that and like created that progression downwards into depression. And that was very much solidified around like 18, 19, because I moved out of my childhood home, started going to college, but I had a very intense traumatic experience right after turning 18. And that just kind of really enmeshed in my negative coping habits, the idea of like, we do not acknowledge the thing that happened. We stuff everything down and we siphon it off if necessary in like bouts of physical activity through sports and stuff. Like I played a lot of sports. I did a lot of activities. So it was like we siphon where we can in times when aggression or like acting out in that kind of fashion is acceptable, like on a basketball court. And otherwise stuff it down, right? So I did certain things that would take the edge off to siphon it that way. And then I very much found drugs and alcohol in my later teen years. And then I recognized like, oh, this siphons it off in a much easier fashion. And it allows me a release that I can do socially, right? Because I'm also just a very shy, yes.
Shy?
I know, right?
Really?
People who know me laugh. And it's because once I know you and I'm comfortable with you, I can be extroverted. I can be very open. But if I don't know you, if I'm not comfortable in the situation in the room, right, then I'm very shy. And it's funny because I'll have people who know me laugh and be like, no, you're not. And I'm like, think about the first time you met me, though. How much did I speak? Did I look at you? Like, was I wallflowering? Because I am next level wallflower. Like, I wallflowered at my own wedding. There was several times where I was like, I'm in the white dress and no one's talking to me. This is amazing. Right? Right? I'm drinking my drink like, this would be sad, I guess. Maybe it is. I don't know. I was very confused. But it's because I have next level wallflower ability.
Okay.
Because I tried to do that, right? I come from a very large boisterous family and I am the most introverted of the members of my family.
Okay.
And so I just naturally found the edges and observed life. And that kind of like progressed. And then as the depression progressed, it was just like, okay, this is all just a self-fulfilling prophecy melting pot of like, you're never actually going to deal with this stuff, are you? Because you just keep pulling away, siphoning away, and just hiding yourself away. So very much that's why I kind of say like my bottom is just an eventual progression downwards. Cause like after that traumatic experience at 18 and really solidifying those coping mechanisms, then it was just like, all right, now we're just going to make a nice little comfy home in this dark pit that I live in because I don't see a way out. And like I would try to access mental health services throughout, like in my teenage years, throughout my early adult years. I tried to seek help when available,
Right.
but I always did like half of what they asked, right? Like they were like, do this CBT, DBT, whatever therapy. And I'd be like, yeah,
baby.
for sure.
Easier, softer way.
Exactly. And I'd do it, but they'd be like, maybe you should also stop smoking weed every day and stop binge drinking on the weekends. And I'm like, yeah, no. That doesn't sound right.
Now, let me ask you, when you were starting to have awareness that you were on this downward incline, were you noticing that it was that it felt better when you were drinking? Because for me, I found like while I was down there, right, like that was the solution. Like I felt like shit. I just wanted to kill myself, but then I'd use or drink, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm okay again. I can get through the day now. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Which in turn caused that incline to keep going. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think the reason why I paused there is because like initially, yes. So like later teen years, 100%. It like removed the feelings. I got that sense of ease and comfort that comes immediately from taking a few drinks or a puff or whatever, right? Immediate relief. Because things got so bad mental health wise at 18, and now that I'm not in my parents' house, so I have unfettered access to self-medicate every day, all day now, as opposed to kind of keeping it in check because I have to interact with my immediate family who knows me and will see because I'm also very obvious, like my face would show you, right? Like I don't have a poker face in that respect. It was very clear that I was messed up. And
See,
so
mine was always easy for people to tell because I chose drugs that really affected your pupils. And mine went, like, I literally had to buy colored contacts for my entire 20s. Otherwise, you would know that I was tweaking all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My whole face changes. Like, you know, before we started, we were talking about an animated face. Very much you would see the effects of that, like, especially with marijuana, right? Just like everything gets droopy and I just get kind of like,
Right.
And so, like, I found very quickly that like, oh, like I need to consciously think about my face where everybody knows, right?
Don't
and then I'm going to
forget
get
to
next
blink.
level paranoid about that, right?
Yes.
And I also didn't recognize that like as the mental health stuff got worse, that me increasing my consumption significantly was also making it worse.
Right.
Like I didn't realize till I got sober that a lot of my like psychosis stuff, a lot of the hearing voices in my head was actually as a result of using a psychoactive substance every single day for 16 years. It got immediately better as soon as I stopped. And as soon as my body kind of detoxed it out, I was like, oh, it's kind of quieter in here.
Right.
Weird. Because I used to justify using as a way to, like, I was like, well, I got too many voices going on. It's too intense. I'm going to do this or this to make it stop. Right. Didn't realize that was a catch-22 and it would seem like it stopped in the moment, like you said. And like,
well, and it's fascinating too. So like I was in this super toxic relationship years ago with this narcissist, and he was so, I didn't know what narcissism was at the time. He told me, he was so good at gaslighting me, this guy. Like it was awful. And one day he called me a narcissist, and I was like, I didn't know, like I knew of the term, right? This is before it became really well known. And I was like, what? And I went home and I immediately looked it up. And what I found was this 45-minute thing from this doctor talking about borderline personality disorder and narcissism. And so I'm like listening to all this material and I'm like, he's a narcissist. I'm not a narcissist. He's a narcissist. But then I was listening to all this borderline personality disorder behavior, and like of the 9 traits, I had 8 of them, maybe 8.5 of them. And I was like, am I borderline personality disorder? I remember texting my mom being like, when I was a child, did I act like this, or this? And she's like, why are you asking me these things? And I'm like, because I'm pretty sure I have this. And I think I remember the conversation being like, did you WebMD yourself? And I'm like, no. But like, no, but seriously, like I saw, like this would explain a lot. And I'm like, just watch it first, then let me know. Right. And then my mom's like, that would actually explain a lot. And I was like, okay. So when I got into recovery through my mandated program, they were like, you're not talking to anybody. And I'm like, I am not discounting mental health. Mental health is a serious thing for a lot of people. I can only speak from my experience. And I think you should seek the appropriate resources and what's best for you. But it was interesting when I hit 6 months, first thing I said to this program, I'm like, Kate, I'm at 6 months. Let's go. Hook me up with a psychiatrist. I need to be diagnosed with this. When I checked into detox, they were like, do you have any self-diagnosed diseases or diagnosed diseases? And I'm like, I think I'm this. And they're like, oh, is that why you use meth? And I'm like, they get it too. Okay. She's like, oh, have you been self-medicating? And I'm like, yes. So I talked to the psychiatrist for, I don't know, an hour. And I remember being broken. She looked at me and she said, while I think that you could really benefit from some one-on-one counseling. Keep in mind, at this time, I'm 6 months sober, have been doing the steps, have been doing this other program, been actively working on myself, and I'm starting to get some of the promises. She's like, I think you could benefit from some one-on-one counseling, but you do not have borderline personality disorder. I was so upset, Nicole. I was so upset. Yeah. I wanted to have it because I wanted there to be a reason. I wanted to understand why I was the way I was. And a part of me was like, shit, now I actually so I'm fine. So I just have to do all the work now. Like I wanted the easier, softer way. I wanted an escape. And it was fascinating because I learned all of the reasons why in 4 and 5. Right. And then from there, I got to learn myself. But it's beautiful how if you have mental health issues, yes, address them, go do the appropriate things for you. But for me, it was fascinating, something I was convinced to my core that I had. Solving the spiritual malady by using the 12-step programs fixed my problem. Turns out I didn't have a chemical imbalance or a specific diagnosis. I was just fucked up from addiction. Right?
And that is a beautiful side. And I like that the book references that, where it's like, you might need to also seek outside help. This is not a cure-all for everything. It's something that you can approach holistically. Okay, this is going to help me with a good chunk of stuff. I might also need some outside help here, here, and here to work through it. And I liked that because by the time I had been introduced to recovery, I'd already done a lot of therapy. And I was like, all right, I feel like I've got a good basis of what's going on and why, but I need this missing piece because it's not quite working. Because we talked about, I'm not doing that suggestion of just not taking the drugs or the alcohol anymore to cope. So once I had something to help me replace that security blanket, then it was like, all right, so now I can take all of the stuff I've already learned about myself, apply it, mash it into the 12-step program, and now I have a viable program of action that will allow me to see effective results because I'm not self-medicating in a way that's actually harmful and perpetuating a lot of the mental health issues I'm struggling with.
Right.
Amazing how much progress can be made very quickly once we figure that out and start actually applying everything in a way that's healthy and that's forward-thinking.
I just love talking about the book.
Yeah.
It's a miracle that we have this thing.
Right?
Okay, so let's get back to kind of what was your bottom? What was the thing that made you just finally, because I don't like using the term make a decision, even though it is in our 3rd step. When did you finally surrender? How did that bottom hit you where you were finally fine, I'm willing to do what it takes?
Gotcha. So because of the progression of the mental health stuff, progression of the illness and the disease, right? Because this is a progressive disease. So I was seeing and feeling the effects of that. So in my early 30s, I got really, really sick physically. And I thought I'd finally made myself so crazy up here. It's stemming downwards. My body is just breaking down. It can't handle life. Yes and no. Turns out that was a multi-pronged thing. I have some food sensitivities, and I was just poisoning myself daily with what I was eating. once we figured that out, physical health got back up. But the mental health was still very much in the gutter. And so what you're talking about in terms of like where was my bottom is like for years, because I had suicidal ideations every single day, I would convince myself out of it with like either a bigger reason, like I can't do that to my mom or I can't do that to my husband. But there was also just asinine reasons to it. But like, well, there's laundry in the wash. He hates laundry. Like I can't have Toby come home to a dead body and wet clothes, you know? And so it'd be like the most asinine things. Like I'd be like, oh, there's dishes on the counter. I should do the dishes first. I'll kill myself tomorrow. And that's literally how I made it through 16 years of daily ideations, is I would just tell myself like, I'll do it tomorrow. I have things to do today, because I'm very much a go-getter. I've always got 100 things on the go. Mm-hmm. And what scared me is in the last year before I found recovery, that little voice that was like, you should do this first, or like, no, you can't do that to your husband, you can't do that to your mom, shifted. And then it was like, your mom has 3 other kids, and they're giving her grandbabies, and you've always told her you're never going to do that for her. So, like, would she really miss you? She's not going to notice, right? And that's unfair. I know my mom would absolutely care, right? Like, just to put that on the record. My mom loves me. She's a very wonderful mom. But that was the sick voice in my head being like, she wouldn't notice. She's got 3 other kids, and I think at that time, like, 7 grandbabies. I don't know. I'm up to 11 now for nieces and nephews. But, like, that kept her busy, and it gave her a sense of purpose and direction, right? So I was able, or that sickness inside my head was able to be like, so like your mom probably wouldn't notice. And then I did the same thing with my husband. I was like, well, he's young and pretty and gorgeous. Like, he'll be fine. He'll be able to remarry, get his white picket life. Maybe he'll find somebody who does want to make babies for him. Like, that's great. He can have this beautiful life if you do it now, right? Like if you do it sooner rather than later, he can move on and have this lovely life because he won't be too old to be able to do that.
It's fascinating how fast that light switch can, like how the obsession and like the disease can just immediately try to get you to, it's just, it happens so, it's, you can go like this, and then as soon as that happens, it's just straight down.
Yes.
That's crazy.
And I didn't recognize until entering the program that, like, yeah, I have an obsession to use drugs and alcohol to numb out, but I also had an obsession with just the idea of killing myself. Like, I was very much wrapped up. My spiritual malady was like, let's wrap ourselves in more than one harmful obsession and really just get the ism out in multiple facets, right? And so I didn't see that until coming into the program. Then I was like, oh yeah, I was equally obsessed with this ideology that, like, I could just throw in the towel whenever, when I've had enough of fighting, of trying, of pushing, and being really sad, I could just let it go. And so I got very, very scared because I heard that internal dialogue shifting. And this was after I'd done my most recent bout of like going down to a hospital, doing one-on-one counseling sessions at least every 2 to 3 weeks with a person for an hour. She put me in a group therapy program. So like I'd done about 1.5 years of intensive work because like spurred on from the physical stuff. And I was like, okay, like it's great. And then the world shut down for a few years. And it was kind of just before the world shut down, my counselor looked at me and she said, you know what? I've already maxed you out 2 more times, because it was a free program I'd found through my general practitioner. She's like, I've maxed you out twice. I can't max you out anymore unless you look at me and say that you think that you're a threat to yourself or others. And at the time I was like, well, probably not. I mean, I've been thinking about killing myself for 16 years now. Like, I don't think I'm going any closer to doing it, right? Like, I was like, I don't think I'm any closer to doing it than not. And if you're saying this to me, how unfair is that of me to keep monopolizing your time when there's clearly so many other people, right? Because I live and work downtown Calgary. I see the need for appropriate mental health services, addiction services. Like, we just need to give more resources to this issue, because we're not attacking it head on very effectively, right? And people are falling to the wayside and people are suffering as a result. So I kind of looked at it that way and I said, well, yeah, I still have the markers of a reasonable life, right? I'm still employed. I still have my husband. I still have a house. So like, I could probably not take up your time and allow you to help somebody else who maybe does need you. So I quit doing that. And then very quickly It was like just a slide progression where I was like, oh, yeah, like I'm not actually okay though. Now that I don't have somebody to talk me out of it every few weeks, I'm just feeling alone. And then, of course, with the world shutting down, it just helped that isolated feeling. I was working a lot less too. My husband got laid off. So it opened up the opportunity for even more self-medicating because now I don't need to weekend warrior because I'm only working 3 days a week instead of 5. So it just kind of increased and shifted that. So I hit that bottom of like, shit, I think I might actually do it. And I'm really scared I'm going to get the balls to do it. Because like that was also the thing is fear runs my life. It's so pervasive. I've always been terrified my entire life of everything. It started at like 3 and it's just been a constant theme. And so that really scared me that I might actually make good on these thoughts for once. And that's what I would call my bottom, right? And that's when my God, my version of a higher power, gave me a gift and just presented me with the program through a person, right? Because I was obviously aware that AA exists. My best friend growing up, you know, her dad was in a program. And I wouldn't have found it because I didn't identify as having that problem. I still looked at my using as something that I needed to help me deal with my mental health stuff. Like I always looked at it as like, this is my medication. This is the way that I've chosen to work with my severe mental health issues. I never saw that like it's correlated, it's connected, and like probably all tied in together, and not making things better, right? Definitely making it worse. So I only was introduced to this program through someone else, like through another human being, because I would not have walked in a room on my own. I would not have found it on my own. And my God knew that. My God's like, all right, we're going to introduce this in a roundabout way because you will not accept it. Otherwise, you need to be shown in a very gentle sideways approach because you're not willing to look at yourself and say, like, I think I need help. I think I need a program. So, like, I honestly read the big book the first time because I had told myself I wanted to be a better friend and understand what, like, I need to do a step 10 call before I can chat with you means. Because I would not have read that willingly and acknowledged that I might actually have a problem that, like, that could solve. Didn't occur to me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that. Cool. Huh.
Oh.
And then you read it, and then you ended up relating to it, and then you just like, hey, this sounds a lot like me. Maybe I should go to the rooms and check it out.
Exactly.
Love
that was the problem, right? Is reading it, and I was like, oh, this isn't just like a fun read, because I'm a very avid reader, and I was getting bored with the series I was reading at the time. So that's why I was also like, yeah, like, let me just borrow your spare copy. I'm just going to read this and see. It'll be a fun little jaunt. I read super fast. I got it done in like a few weeks. And I read it very quickly. But yeah, way too much resonated. And not like the talking about the disease, because I was still incredibly in denial that I had that problem. Right. So it was the feelings. It was the emotional instability that they would bring up in the stories. And it was
the impending doom and the
exactly
necessity and
yes.
Yeah.
So like the Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I could resonate with that because I was like, I do that like every weekend to my husband.
Sleep the clock the day or sleep. Well, I can't remember the verbiage.
Yeah.
Sleep the clock around. I can't remember.
Yeah.
That was the biggest one that stuck out for me because I would go for days and then sleep for 36 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's the catch is when enough resonates, it plants that little seed, right? So I had the seed planted by the book itself, and I just let it ruminate and resonate. And because that planted enough of a seed, then I started bugging my friend about it. And I was like, okay, tell me more about it. Like, explain it. And they were like, why don't you just come to a meeting and the meeting will explain it for you? Right? Because I was like, I have like 400 questions and a notebook. Like, I'm gonna learn about this, right? Because I'm a very avid learner. And that was taxing on somebody, right? It's taxing on anybody. So they brought me to the rooms because they're like, here's how you can learn about it super fast and easy. It's like, just come and see and listen to it. So I still was like, I don't have a problem. I'm just super interested in this. And that's why I laughed when we were trying to decide what to talk about, because the only other thing that appealed to me in the book was the way that it brought about the idea of God and the idea of introducing a God in your life. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I've sought God my entire life, ever since I decided that the version I was shown at 7 didn't resonate, didn't work with me, and wasn't going to be something that I could hold in my heart. What do I do now?
Right.
Right. So even in college, I was like, I'm going to take an Eastern religious studies class because maybe it's just Western religion that doesn't relate to me. And I tried everything to try to find a version that fit. And nothing ever quite fit. And so when the big book was like, pick your own, be whatever you want, I was like, wait, what? Nobody's given me that permission before.
No limitations,
Sweet.
no downfalls, no consequences, just literally everything that I need it to be, it can be.
Yes. Like no stipulations and no consequences, no hell, nothing that's going to tell me that I'm wrong or that I'm bad or that I'm not good enough to receive God's love if I don't follow this rubric or I don't follow this ideology perfectly. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I want that. So it was kind of like, enough of this resonates. And I like the way you're talking about God because no one's ever put it that way before. Fine, I will come to these rooms and be very terrified because I don't feel like I belong and I don't feel like I fit in here. But I think that I want what you guys have, right? And I didn't recognize that until I came to the room and saw how happy you guys were. And I was like, well, I would like that because I'm not happy at all. And I have every reason to be, and I'm miserable and suicidal. So I would like some of this, whatever this is.
Well, and our home group is so good for that. Like, I've been to a lot of rooms, a lot of fellowships, a lot of groups in my time in different places, not just Calgary. And let me tell you, the first time I ever set foot in our home group, I was like, oh, these are my people. We're not just happy. Like, there's a light in all of us. And it's so grounded in God and the big book and the solution. And it's almost magical. The things that can happen in our room. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're right. Like, had I been introduced to a different room, perhaps I would not have had that same feeling. But our home group is the very first room that I'd ever went to. It was a birthday night.
Ah, those are the best.
So, like, that was my very first introduction to what a meeting could be. Is our home group on a birthday night with like 125 people in there, all energized, all lit up with God's love. Like, it was overwhelming, terrifying, but immediately addictive.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I want more of this. But like, I was terrified to go. If the person who took me would have held my hand, I was trying to force them to hold my hand because I was so scared to go, right? But I was like, I know that there's something calling me in this in a way that I've never allowed myself to feel before, in a way that's cutting through all the numbing agents I'm putting in there, and I want it, right? And I showed up and I was like, wow, okay, you guys are talking in a way that resonates. There's feelings that are shared. Exact details are very different, but the feelings and some of the actions resonate and are so accurate and so telling that, like, I'm going to come back here. And I'm still in full denial that I actually have a problem,
right,
with drugs and alcohol. But I'm like, no, I just want whatever you guys have. Like, whatever you need me to say, I'll say it so that I get to stay. Because I just want some of this in however I can achieve it, however I can get a piece of it.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then look at you now.
I know, right?
Look at you now.
But like, I needed all of those pushes from God, right? I needed to be introduced to it in a sideways way from the book. I needed that friend to bring me. I didn't like actively pick my first sponsor. I was pushed at them, physically shoved by my buddy who brought me, physically shoved at. They were like, there's a woman. And then I ran into her and had to like, oh my, I'm so sorry. I tripped. Like, I just lied because I didn't want to be, my friend pushed me into you. So it's like, sorry, I tripped. And we introduced ourselves, right? She took my contact information. She was very good about being like, hey, like reaching out, making me feel welcome. And again, my buddy was like, you need to text them back. And I was like, no, I don't think I will. She seems a little clingy. She seems a little intense. He's like, it's called being friendly and like welcoming. Like, do you not have people text you like that? I'm like, generally no, I guess. I don't know. I have a few tight friends, as in like 2. This is new to me, right? And so my God was very much like, we're going to give you some active help here because you're just not gonna do it for yourself. And so anytime I meet a newcomer who's like, I came here all on my own, I'm like, congratulations. Holy, do you know how much courage you have? Do you know how much strength you have? Like, I am in awe of you because I didn't do that for myself in the beginning. So give yourself a pat on the back, give yourself a props, because if you walked your own butt here, you're already ahead of me on that willingness and that intensity level. You're gonna, you know, if you apply it, you're gonna be fine.
Right.
You're gonna make it.
Well, and it's so funny too, like when I talk to people that are like outside of the rooms, the main general like understanding is that people just walk in and figure it all out and want to do it, right? Like I've heard that many times. That wasn't my experience either, right? And I constantly do say, long before I ever believed in God, that God had bigger plans for me than I had for myself, and he got tired of waiting for me to get my shit together, right? And literally, because he knew. See, the problem is, like, my first bottom was in 2006. I lost my fiance due to my addiction and my choices and my behavior. And from that, I told my family about my Coke addiction. I will clarify that because I didn't think drinking was a problem at the time. Mm-hmm. And so they helped get me into treatment, and I didn't understand it until I did a lot of internal work, and I'm back now. But really going back, I understood that I just wanted to win him back. I did it all for selfish reasons. I didn't want to change. I didn't want to grow. I didn't want to get sober. Like, I was just kind of there, right? And I remember seeing the God word on the wall while I was in treatment and being like, fucking nope. Like, absolutely not. Because I know there's no God. I don't want anything to do with religion. Absolutely not. Okay, no. And I'm sure they told me that drinking was a drug when I was there. They must have. But I definitely didn't hear any of that. Right. And so I got out, started drinking right away. And it was only a matter of time until I was right back to where I was before and worse. And then my ski jump and my progression went down. And I think I got sober when I was 30, just before I turned 34. I would say by the time I hit 28 or 30, I had finally found the first acceptance I had ever found in my life, and I accepted that I was going to live and ultimately die an addict. I knew I had a problem. I knew I couldn't stop using drugs. I once watched somebody, when I was living with this guy, I watched somebody try to detox off of meth, and I was like, and I just started using meth at the time, and I remember being like, I can never quit that. That looks hard. Like, that looks awful. I don't want to go through that. I'll be fine as long as I keep using. And, yeah, I remember being like, this is who I am. Like, this is who I'm going to be. Like, I didn't want to stop. It was the only solution I had, right? I wanted to stop sometimes on like the coming off the spree into stage 5, I would sit there and be like, it would be really nice to have a normal life. It would be really nice to not have to depend on this, that, and that. And then I'd go to sleep and I'd wake up and I'd be fucking suicidal and crawling out of my skin. And then I'd have a drink and a hoot and I could breathe again, right? And then I felt good again. And then I was like, why would I ever want to quit this? This is literally what makes me okay, right? God knew that. God knew that there was absolutely no way. When you it's why acceptance is so great for me today. I accept things in different ways. Obviously, I've learned a lot, right? But I had accepted that there was never going to be any seeking on my part. I'm like, nope, this is who I am. This is what I got. This is the hand I was dealt. And God was like, you're a great human being and have no idea what you're doing. Let me just present this opportunity, right? And so I ended up getting into a lot of trouble. I ended up being given a choice. Do you want to go to jail or do you want to try this thing, right? And it's so cool to talk about today because I'm so focused on faith over fear and recognizing step 10s and recognizing I spent a lot of time working on resentments. I'm really good about that now. It takes a lot to get me resentful. It still comes up, but it takes a lot. But for the last 2 years, like, fear everywhere. I fear itself. It's everywhere. It's awful. I've been getting a lot better at it. And it's fascinating that fear was the thing that ultimately saved my life. The only reason I went through with the process is I was afraid of the consequences if I didn't. Right. And the worst part is right before I had agreed to this program that I got into, and like a month and a half before I started, I literally sat my parents at the kitchen table, and I made my whole family, including myself, cry. And I said, I decided I don't want to do this, and I want to go to jail instead. And they were like, what do you mean? And I'm like, at least I can still get high. Right. I got pushed into recovery the first time. I can't get pushed into it again. It's not going to work. Right? I didn't go for me. I went for him. And now you're all telling me that I have to go. How is this possibly going to work for me? If you're telling me that I have to do it. And that ultimately I decided, what's the better option? Try freedom and maybe a way out or not, right? So ultimately I tried it, and there's a saying that is, I don't believe it's from any literature, but it's very common. This program is not for people who want it. It's for people who need it. Or sorry, it's not for people who need it. It's for people that want it. And after my experience and having God show me the way and get me in and all these things, like, I just don't believe that's true at all. I don't believe it's true at all. I believe this program's not for people who want it. It's not for people who need it. It's just for those that are willing to do the fucking work. Right? I was terrified of the consequences, and relating it to the literature, like, I was beaten to a point of reasonableness. I had all the desperation of a drowning man. And I got stuck because when I went in the first time, like, I knew there was no God. And so coming back the second time, I'm like, well, now I want to try, but I already know what's waiting. Like, I'm screwed. And I was stuck between the problem and the solution. I'm like, I know I have the problem. The first 43 pages of the book showed me that I have this thing, and I am what I like to call a big book addict. Like, I have this thing. I'm beyond human aid. But I can't get behind the solution. So what does that mean? Like, I mean, it means I'm fucked. Like, what am I going to do? Right? But because I was so full of fear, it made me realize that maybe I didn't know everything, and that I should hear the information and try things before passing judgment and assuming I know everything. And through the help of a really great sponsor, and I talk in detail about how she kind of turned my brain around on that in other episodes, I finally understood that my problem isn't, and has never been, with God. My problem has been with religion. Right? And so I like to talk. I know they talk about in the book how it can be totally personal to you. I like to share mine, because if you can't find one, maybe this will help you find one, right? Like, mine is literally just the universe. It's nature, Mother Nature, the creator. It's the seasons. It's the feeling that I get when I pray really hard out loud and I actually get goosebumps. It's the feeling of energy that I feel going through my body on certain things. It's that intuition. It's all of that stuff. That's it. That's all that it is. And what's really cool is, over the last few years, spending more time in nature, I feel more connected.
Yes.
For me, over the last year, game changer. I learned a lot about, not a lot, I've started to learn about chakras. And during my morning prayers, I do affirmations for each chakra and try to set myself at a frequency, and I just communicate with the universe. I'm like, put me in a position of being able to be of maximum service, right? And I feel the energy from the universe. The universe is my God, right? I use the term God because it's easier. I don't but to me, God is the entirety of the universe and how it all works together, right? And it's just, the more connected, the more I work on this stuff and I keep my channel clear, the more I physically feel the universe inside, through, and around me. It's beautiful. I do a big book study at the treatment center that I went to in the beginning, and I pray before I do it. And there's not a single time where I'll get to a certain point of the book. And I've gotten really good, because I've gone through it so many times now, at like really enunciating important paragraphs. And after, like, I'm goosebumps like everywhere, like myself, I'm the one reading it, and I'm like, whoo, God really liked that one. Okay, that means we should stop and talk about it. Let's talk about it. And it's just, I had no idea that I kept myself out much longer than needed, because I just couldn't understand. Religion and spirituality are different. They're different. They're different. And I think it stops a lot of people, right? And it's a huge, huge
Absolutely.
thing. And it was so cool. It was so interesting. I won't share it because it's not mine to share. But I did never understand where my religious prejudice and why I was so against religion came from until almost my third year. I was reading what I've read 100 times before with a sponsee, talking in We Agnostics about how we were diverted by the ugliness of some of the trees and how like we were taking the actions of a few and condemning the entire religion.
Yes.
And all of a sudden it like popped in, like it just came flooding back to me, an experience from a friend that they had to go through in their life. And it had nothing to do with the religion itself, but the person was religious.
Yeah.
And my brain immediately went, if that's how religious people act, I don't want any of that. And I took the actions of one fallible human being
Yeah.
and condemned everything else. They're like talk about addict behavior, one spectrum to the other. And it was just, it was fascinating. But I love talking about mine. Hopefully it helps people find their own.
Exactly.
Love Mother
Absolutely.
Nature. It's literally all it is.
No, that's beautiful, right? Because I think we like to complicate it too much and need to fully understand it. You talked about a few things that was great. I was like, oh, there's so many things that came up when you were talking. I love that you came in knowing the addict part, and it was the God part that you stumbled with or got caught up on, right? I feel like it's so beautiful that we get to have this conversation because like I was kind of on the other side and then I was so in denial that this was the thing, but I was like, no, but I want the God thing.
Yeah, we
And-
were totally opposites.
Right. And like working through that with both my sponsors on both sets of steps has been interesting because I had to reassess step one the second time around too, because there was still like just that little bit of like lingering doubt. And I had to really unpack it. And it allowed me to kind of see it from a different side for me in terms of like that addiction tendency. And that's when I started to see like, oh yeah, the addiction and the isms and the obsession, that spiritual malady was manifesting in so many ways. Nicole, like here it is, here it is, here it is. And we had to like write out a few examples to really see that tie in for me. And I was able to kind of recognize that like I drink alcoholically consistently, always have, always will. I'm an alcoholic. But because I was able to be like, no, I take a few days off, mostly because my hangovers were so intense and brutal, I just couldn't have a hair of the dog like people would do that. And I'm like, ugh, no, like I can't, right? I am on a couch, comatose in a bucket the whole next day. And because I would have those periods of time and be more weekend warrior about it, I'd commit like I can't be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And on doing my second set of steps and reassessing one, that's when I had to be honest with myself because, of course, everyone else already knows, right? Of course, my sponsor already knows. But I had to be honest with myself and be like, are you still medicating in some capacity, though? If you're still smoking weed every single day, Nicole, then you're still feeding that allergy. You're still feeding that obsession. You're still feeding that spiritual malady with something. So then it doesn't matter that you can put the drink down every now and then, or maybe not every single night is a complete dumpster fire tear, right? Sure, maybe you did stop after 3 beers instead of getting blackout face planted drunk. But how many joints did you smoke that night? Or how many other substances did you take? Were you still feeding the allergy to some capacity with something?
And
right?
convincing yourself it wasn't because you weren't drinking.
Absolutely, right? Or like convince myself, well, I can put this down, right? Because I've dabbled with the harder stuff, but I was always like, no, I'm a dabbler. And it's mostly because I'm terrified. I am so afraid of liking it too much or of spending too much money or this or that, right? So I would always default down to my 2 safety nets where I'm like, these are cheaper and easier. These are my knowns, but I'll dabble and have fun because these are starting to not be as effective. And so I could see that progression, right? And it was really unpacking the second time around when I was like, oh, yeah, like that's why I need the God thing. Because if not, I'm going to become alcoholic number 3, where I believe that after a period of time being sober, I can drink like a normal person because I'm not hammering one down enough in my head. I'm not seeing that I am to my core the real deal. And if I don't accept that, it doesn't matter how much I really, really pour myself into all the rest of this. I need to have that gut level concession that I hammered down in my sponsees. Like, what, Nicole? So I got a lot better at doing it with sponsees once I could actually fully commit to it, right? Because I feel like through no fault of my sponsor, my first set of steps, I was like checking boxes off. And I was saying what needed to be said, right? Because I'm a very smart person. I'm incredibly manipulative. And I found that out from doing the program. I did not see that at all. But it was a survival technique when I was younger. And then it just shifted into something I did without even noticing it, that morphed aggressively from a survival tactic to something that I do now because I need to get what I need when I need it. No holds bar. And as long as I can justify that I'm not hurting you with it because you agreed to do the thing that I manipulated you into doing for 3 months, it's fine. I can go to bed at night and act like I'm still a good person.
You're an addict.
Right? And like seeing that being like, oh God.
Right.
And recognizing the God thing's not really gonna matter if you don't see why you need God. Why you can't just like want him, why you need a God of your own understanding, a higher power source, like, and creating that connection so that when that inevitably comes up for you and you have that mental blank spot and you get that insane idea that maybe just one sip would be fine, God's going to save your butt. But like I needed to kind of come to that understanding.
Right.
So I liked when you brought up the whole, like, it's not for people who need it or want it. It's for people who do it.
Just do the work.
You can need it and want it all you want, but it's not necessarily going to work unless you do it. You do everything it asks wholeheartedly.
Making a decision is
commit to
great,
it.
but you need to have action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And actually follow through with it. And I love that you also brought up the prejudice in religion part, because I love hammering that down. And the way agnostics be like, are you getting sick of hearing the word prejudice? Yeah, because it's coming up like 4 more times still in the next 3 pages, And
Yeah.
I'm like, is it feeling repetitive? Is it feeling frustrating? Yeah. Think about the intelligence that this book was written in, and the fact that they do try to use a bunch of different words to say a bunch of different things, and then the fact that they're still just going to say prejudice like once per page for like 7 pages in a row, and then ask yourself why that might be a thing.
And that was the collective thoughts of 101 people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. The original core group were like, we really need to hammer this though, and we really need to make sure, because I was the exact same as you, where I was like, no, I've seen representations of religions from 1 or 2 specific people, or like these ideologies that I'd created about religions based on the actions of fallible people, because we're all just human beings having a human experience, trying our best with the skills and the tools that we have. And some of us got different and better skills and tools when we were younger, right? Some of us got different lessons. Some of us got a better toolkit to start.
Yeah.
And it's not our fault up until a point. And then, I'm an adult and I have agency, so I should probably work on my toolkit now at this point, right?
Totally.
And I love that the program references that, where it's like, we're going to give you skills and tools and a program of action.
You just got to use it.
Absolutely. Because I was like, yeah, like I'm pretty smart, but I've always stumbled in certain ways because I just need a clear-cut set of directions to follow. And then I'm going to be good to go. And if you tell me that I'm going to get all of these amazing things as a result of following this, I will do it. I work great with a carrot reward system, right? I've been punished. That was effective, but I just found a way to manipulate myself around that, right? So it's like, instead of getting in trouble anymore, I'm just going to go up to my mom. I'm going to tell her what I did wrong. I'm going to say I'm sorry. I'm going to give myself the punishment of dishes for the next 2 weeks. And then we're just going to pack that up, walk away, and we're done in like 5 minutes. And we don't have to do a whole thing about it. She loved that because she had 3 other kids to deal with. Right? She's like, all right, fine. I'm picking dishes because we have a dishwasher and nobody's putting 2 and 2 together. That's like the easiest chore I could pick because manipulative and selfish. And I was like, this is great. Yeah, problem solved. Mm-hmm. But it's not, that's only so effective because I'm just avoiding a consequence. I'm not doing something for that benefit. And so when the book was like, I will tell you these things, and I will tell you promises that you get, I was like, all right, sure. I love working on a reward system. Mm-hmm. If you swearsies that I'm going to get this, if I do all of this hard work, and if I just bawl for a year straight, fine, I'll do it, man. But I better see it, right? And it was kind of like spitefully just going for the end game. But it works. It didn't matter that the intention wasn't necessarily pure.
Right.
And that the motive wasn't necessarily pure. I got there, and now that I'm on the other side, I can be like, it is pure now. The intention and motive is there now from a more pure place of heart.
Right.
Beautiful. Thanks, God.
Thanks, God.
Thanks.
I love that you said that because it really links and relates to my favorite part of We Agnostics and doing the step 2 of it all. Talking about these clear-cut directions, and it's like you were told, if you do this, you will get this. And so you were told that by a person who had already done it and said that it worked for them. Exactly. So you believed, I mean, you were willing and therefore believed that it was worth trying. Then you tried, and then you received, and then you were like, okay. And then over time, now it all makes sense. I love, my favorite part for me as a non-God believer for so long, the simplicity of how they try to make it so easy for you to understand how your limiting beliefs can block you off from beautiful things. My favorite part of We Agnostics is the Wright brothers example, right? Yeah. Years and years and years ago, the smartest people on the planet proved man would never fly. Proved man would never fly. They were wrong.
Yep.
The smartest people in the world, I am not even close to being in like the 98th percentile, let alone the top. But I think that I know everything. I think that everything that I think is right, every opinion that I've formed from every coping mechanism and every experience, that was a really cool experience to be able to be like, well, that actually kind of makes sense. And then you turn it around to the other side, the Wright brothers' almost childlike faith that they believed they could make this happen was the mainspring of their accomplishment. They believed they would find a way, and then they did. And it turns out all these really smart people were wrong. So that was really good for me to be like, okay, I have 101 people in the book telling me that God is real. I got my sponsor looking me in the face telling me that God is real. I have the book saying that the smartest people in the world can be wrong and will be wrong again, and that science like doesn't know anything. Science simply studies creation. Creation does its thing and we try to catch up to it. Like, we don't actually know a lot, right? Believe it or not. And so I'm like learning all of these things, and I was like, it was the first time I felt humility and humbleness come into my life. Had to feel it a lot more times before I got it as a principle that I try to have a foundational life on today.
Yeah.
But I remember that first time where I finally allowed myself to say, maybe I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And then that gave me the willingness to try. And then I tried, and then I got a result. And I was like, and it's cool because maybe not with each step, but definitely in the first 3, and then the next 2, and then the next 3, like, maybe not every single one, but there are definite defining moments through doing the steps where you actually see the result of things, and you start to feel it, and you get these things. Yeah. So, like, if you're worried about doing the 12 steps, don't fucking worry about it. Just do the first half, and you'll realize that when you go back, you'll see the result of where you've been, and then that's going to propel you to want to finish and move on. Like, I just love the 12 steps. I just love it. I love God.
Yeah, and I love that idea that, like, they're in order for a reason. Like, it builds you up and it gives you that progression that feels very natural, that's organic, that happens in the right order to work you through the right things at the right time, so that, like, you are ready for the 4, the 5, because you've done the foundational 1, 2, and 3. You know,
Yes.
You're ready to talk to people about the ways you've harmed them in 9, because you've looked at yourself at 4, and then you've had somebody else shine an extra light on 5, and you went, oh, I didn't even see that side. I didn't even see that side. Oh, God, I really didn't see that. And then you get all that extra information to take into it, and it just, like, it's this beautiful progression that builds on it.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, yeah, it started with terrible intentions and motives, right? Like, I was like, I just want to not kill myself, like, whatever.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we built
Mine
it
was
up.
literally, I just want to get out of this program. So I'll do what they tell me to, and then I'll just go right back out.
Exactly.
But
right?
then I got all the results from doing the work, and I love my life now.
Right? Like, you hit that point where you're like, okay. And, like, I got through my first set. Things were great. Something happened, and I feel like I got booted off my pink cloud way too early. I got resentful as hell about that. Because people were like, yeah, I had a pink cloud for like a year. And I'm like, I got it for like 2 months. you. You know, like I was so angry that I got booted off my cloud. But then I had to look at myself and be like, oh, Nicole, is there maybe some stuff that was still there that you didn't realize was still there that needs to come out, right? So, like, I wouldn't recommend, like, jumping into another one immediately. Like, I did my first 2 sets of steps within the first year of being sober because I was like, well, I'm still broken and messed up. Like, I guess we still have work to do. But I did see where, like, I had given answers that I knew were the right answers and wasn't fully committed to it, right? Like I was like, I will tell you what I know you need to hear so that we can move forward. So it's not that I think I intentionally half-assed it, but it's like I don't think I realized how manipulative I was being because I didn't honestly see it. I didn't see that I was manipulating myself into not getting the full extent and the full grace that could come because I was like, I'll just lie through to myself through this all.
Well, you have to remember these are coping mechanisms and defects and the way that you react to life. These are compounded for years.
Yep.
We acted them with no awareness. Of course, you had no idea.
Yeah, but it was beautiful to then become starkly aware of it and go, oh God, I need to relay a bit more foundation here because I've skimped on the mortar in places I didn't even know I skimped on. I just didn't know what I didn't know.
I don't even see the sand.
Right? Like I was like, I don't know what I don't know, you know? And rebuilding, I went, oh, thank you, God, because like you knew that. You gave me an experience that you knew would propel me into this. You created all of these dynamics and situations. You brought different people in to go, Nicole, do you seriously not see that? Like, you know, I got a few people in a key point in my recovery that were lovingly willing to call me on my shit and lovingly willing to be like, are you seriously unaware? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, girl. I'm like, oh.
But see, what
Thank
a
you.
beautiful gift for you to be able to have the acceptance of hearing that. How many people come in the rooms, do a set of steps, and their ego takes over. I've done the steps. I've learned about myself. I understand everything, right? I'm 4.5 years sober almost, and I still, 5 years from now, I'm going to be like, did I know myself at all? Because, like, I thought I knew everything after I did the steps. I'm like, I'm amazing. Poster child recovery. Let's save the world. I will help you get sober. Like, I was all about it. And I look back on me at 1 year now. I didn't fucking know anything.
No.
I didn't know anything. And so it's just your willingness really shows through because so many people are like, oh, I did it. I got it. Ego comes back. They relapse, and then we never see them again, right? So what a gift that you still had willingness to be shown where improvement was needed, and then you were able to lay that foundation. And fucking look at you now, girl.
I mean, I would love to say like, yeah, that willingness just came inherent. It was just, no, I got a lot of pain. I got motivated through pain. And like, yes, I cried my whole first year of recovery, but like, that situation happened and I spent 2 months just bawling every day, all day, wallowing in meetings, right? I spent the first month telling this beautiful soul of a human being like, nah, I'm good. And then finally the second month I was like, fine, we can go outside and talk, but like, I don't even smoke. So you can smoke while we just chat, right? And like, as soon as I finally opened up to her, started telling her about what was going on, she's like, oh, girl, allowed me to see things, talk to me in that loving way, right? Gave me that alternative perspective because I was literally just talking to one person about it because I did not understand the point of pillars or that like it's unfair of me to put the entirety of my recovery stuff on one human being's shoulders and just hope that they can carry that all by themselves because I'm intense. That was unfair. Right? Like, that was unfair to do to just, like, one sponsor and one friend and be like, you guys will carry me. And I will not take any ownership to recognize that if I get involved in this community and build up a support network of more than just 2 people, I might have a better chance of making it, because I'm going to hear a different perspective sometimes from a different angle from somebody with different life experiences or somebody who's able to see me in a different way and call me on my stuff in a different way. And not get so caught up in the idea that, like, these people are, like, my perfect representation of recovery and they're going to be everything. And, like, when they prove to be fallible human beings who are capable of making mistakes, then, like, where am I left to go? Because I put all my eggs in this one basket. Now the basket's on the ground. Half of them are smashed and I'm crying. in meetings, just barely surviving recovery because I don't know how to do it. Barely surviving sobriety, let's be real, because it wasn't even recovery at that point. Just trying to not go back to that old coping mechanism, right? And honestly, I think the only reason why I succeeded in that real difficult time is because I did learn that I need to reach out to other people because I don't have that one resource and I don't have the other. Like, I have to start reaching out. And because I had somebody at home, I would have made the mistake. I know that to my core, that I would have given up on me like I've done every other time in my life. Been like, well, you're not worth it. You're not enough. You're not, but I had that person be like, put down the beer, hun. What are you doing? Right? Because I live with a normie and I didn't want to change their life. So I was like, no, like we can still have everything. I'll just be fine. I'll just not make it because I'm also in denial that I actually have a problem. So I'm like, no, we can still have everything in the house. I'll be okay. Right? So the only reason I made it through, because I was not having like that safe environment at home where there's no substances, is because there was somebody else there to be like, no, what are you doing? Go to a meeting. God, you're a mess. Right? And having that reflection I was not able to see in the beginning. So like, thank you. Beautiful words. But I will verify that the willingness came as a result of intense emotional suffering to a degree I'd never felt before because I had to do it sober this time. And I was like, it hurts so much more now that I have feelings again. I don't want to play this game anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Right? And there was so many times where I was like, I don't want it, but also I do because I've had just enough of the pink cloud to see what it can be like, and I don't want to go back. So like fear being that motivating factor, I love how frustrating fear is for me now because it's the root of all of my issues all of the time. But I also love that because I was so scared of going back, that propelled me forward. So I was like, no, but how much pain and suffering is on the other side. Like, you could just go back to your, little hole that you've created in the dark. But you're scared to go back there because you've seen what the light can look and feel like now. Mm-hmm. And you want that so much worse. Like, what are you going to do? So I was like, well, I guess we'll just try something we've never done, which is just head first through the pain. But do it with fucking support for the first time in your life, Nicole. Talk to people about what's going on. Involve other people in your pain and allow them to help you. What a novel concept. Try not doing it all alone all the time anymore. And it was beautiful. But that willingness came as a result of the pain.
Well, but see, what a great example of what willingness looks like, right? That's why we say it's not for people who want it, not people who need it, people who are willing to do it, because it's not always easy. No. Right? The easier, softer way people believe is to give up and go back out. The easier, softer way is actually to just remain willing and push through the hard spots so that you can end up so much better on the other side. Right? I remember how broken I was. I think about it a lot. It helps me keep me humble and helps me remind myself of why it's so important I never go back there. It's why I love telling my story because it puts me back there. Yeah. Right? I just when I think about how hard it was being on this side of it now, it's such a weird paradox because when I see somebody really broken and struggling, and especially with the drugs that are on the streets now, like one night out, it can be it. Right? It's brutal out there right now. And being on this side, even though I can remember how I felt, I forget how hard it was. Because my brain is like, I'm right here. This is my hand. Can you just grab my hand?
Grab it.
Like, I just come with me. I just need you to grab my hand and take a few steps with me. Come with me. It is beautiful over here. Right? Let's step off of the boat and step onto the shore. Come with me. It's so, just come on. Right? And it's so frustrating when people aren't ready. It's so heartbreaking when people aren't ready. But at the same time, I remember what it's like to be there. And you don't see it. Like, even though people can have their, like, you're not going to see it until you're there. So to remain willing and step into the unknown and step into that faith over fear, it's fucking hard to do.
Absolutely.
Right? But that's what propels you into an entirely different life. Right? And it's something that was, I believe, very noticeable for me to see in you. I saw the shift, right? How long have you been in recovery now?
Just over 2.5, like 2 years and 7 months.
Okay. Just over 18 months is when you started pushing through that stuff, right? Like it's been almost like probably 7 to 9 months that you've been in a pretty good place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see it. I could see in the room.
Okay, sorry. Yes, most recently. Because, yeah, like I had like that intense thing that I was talking about earlier was at month 5 and 6. And then, yeah, at around 18 months, I had another bout. For some reason, March seems to be hard for me because even this March went in a weird dip again. I don't know what that's about, but I'm like, okay, maybe it's just, we're in a new cycle now. I don't know. Because my depression was always incredibly cyclic. So I feel like in recovery, now I've had like this weird dip that happens in
You have
March.
seasons.
Right? And so I'm just learning to accept it. So like this time in March, instead of getting like really downhearted and defeated about it, like I got the last 2 times, I'm like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Or around 18 months, I was like, I'm doing something wrong. I'm not going hard enough in this, and this area of my program. Right? Because that fix it attitude comes in very intensely sometimes. And then I forget, like, Nicole, what is step 3? So are you like trying to do God's job right now? Are you trying to dictate and manage and control and manipulate the situation? Because your job is literally just to do the next right thing, to pause, pray, proceed, to look at the situation and go, what do I believe God's asked me to do right now? Just do that. Stop trying to control, dictate, see 4 steps ahead. Just do the one thing, and then pause, pray, proceed again, champ, because you're going to try to go 4 steps ahead, just jump through and not see the lesson, not see the learning opportunity, not see the where you're still acting out in defects or where I'm still like, I'm just going to self-will this. And so definitely, yeah, like I have that cycle where I'm like, oh, we're reassessing again. Oh, okay.
Don't forget to go easy on yourself too, right? Like I think a lot of us are really hard on ourselves because we're talking about years and years of character defects, of character behavior, years of coping mechanisms and survival techniques. Years. These things are reactionary in us. Year 1's all about learning. Like you're literally getting educated on what the steps are. Year 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and beyond me are really learning how to apply, right?
Yes.
We come in, we learn, and we think we should just fucking have it. And then we hit like around the 18-month, like that's why everyone says year 2 so hard, right? Because all of a sudden we're like, I have to apply this too, like, and I just missed 19 times, so I'm already depressed now.
Yeah.
Go easy on yourself. You're exactly where you were supposed to be at that time.
That's the thing, right? Is I'm always like, okay, like some of your defects have helped you in the program, right? Like the external validation, people pleasing, that like need to get the gold star in recovery, right? Like, sure, that has propelled me somewhat, but it's like, yeah, it's all a fine line. It's all in the application and it's all in recognizing where the credit goes, right? Because if I do all of that work and then I'm like, yay, me, look what I did all on my own, then I'm not seeing it the way that the program has taught me, the way that it's molded me to see it, where it's like, this is a we effort.
You know what my sponsor
Right.
taught me, and I had, because I was just like you were, it's not me, it's God.
Exactly.
She's like, get good at saying that sentence. So a sponsor
Yes.
would be like, thank you so much for all your help. You're amazing. Like, it's not me, it's God.
Yes.
It's not me, it's God.
I love that.
Right? But it was hard at the beginning because I'd say it and be like, well, I mean, I totally contributed. I put in a lot of, like let's make it a little bit of a, right? I could see the selfishness come back in. And I'm like, and it's funny because it took a really long time to be like, you know, I don't take credit for anybody's anything. Like if someone says, thank you so much, I turn around and I'm like, are you kidding? Thank you so much. Because you have no idea how much you helped me today.
Yes.
Right? I thought I knew it all, and now I really understand that sponsorship at its core is selfish too. Right?
Well, right? Kind of inherently.
Right? I was told specifically, if you don't get away, you don't keep it. Right? So I make sure that I sponsor, even if the person doesn't want or get them. Like I try to only obviously see someone's willingness and if they want it, but sometimes you have to sponsor someone for a while for them to come to that conclusion. But but today, after many years of it's not me, it's God. I finally have been put in a position of being able to be like, it has absolutely nothing to do with me. And I'm more grateful for you than you fucking know. Yeah.
Because I think I struggle with that a little bit, but like having the low self-esteem, low self-confidence, like having the lack of love and belief in myself, maybe like made that part of it a little bit easier for me because I was like, yeah, no, like it's all God because I'm shit, so I clearly can't be doing anything, right? And it was trying to find that happy medium of being like, Nicole, you're allowed to give yourself props for the effort that you're putting in, for the right action, for the fact that you are showing up for that reading session excited to do it because, yeah, your life depends on it. So it is inherently selfish that way, right? Like I'm here because, yeah, it's very specific about that.
But
if I
how
want
long
to keep
did
it,
you
I
say
give
you'd
it
be
away.
somewhere and you weren't? And now you are.
Right. And so
Right?
like recognizing like
Yeah.
I can give myself credit here, but yeah, in the same respect, if I like give a beautiful piece of wisdom and they're like, oh, thank you for your wisdom. Like, you're so amazing. I'm like, I'm just passing on information that somebody smarter and wiser gave me already. Like, I'm just sharing information or like God gave me that thought and I'm saying it to you. Like, I didn't do that. People have been around, like this program's been around for so long that we get the benefit of generations worth of knowledge being passed down to us in the little notes that I write in the margin and where you tell me to make a note in my book. That came from somebody, you know, like, and I love that lineage idea that like I am getting years worth of filtered information, hard found through pain, accurate representations of like things that I can apply in a real world way and then like share that with somebody else. And they're like, oh, like, thank you. You're so smart. I'm like, nah, I have that written in the margin of my book because my sponsor showed me and then somebody showed them and somebody showed them. And it's a beautiful lineage that I just get to be a part of and that you will get to be a part of. I'm like, you'll get to turn around and give that advice to somebody in 6 months, a year, whenever it's time, you're going to go, I get to share that little tidbit that Nicole gave me. This is amazing. And isn't that a beautiful gift? Right? And it kind of, I like that you brought up like sponsorship and working with people in that, like it kind of ties into that bottom thing of like, yeah, when I share, like at a treatment center, like share my story or something, or I'm working with a sponsee and we're like in those first few, when we're like just working on step one, I ask God to remind me what it felt like before, right? Because I'm like, it's easy to be happy, joyous, and free and forget that. So I'm like, can you just remind me what it felt like to be in that place so that when I'm sharing in a treatment center, I can not speak from a pedestal. I cannot talk down. I can talk from a level of understanding because I've been there and I just happen to be on a little bit farther ahead on this path we're all on, but we're all on the path. And I do that with sponsees too. So I can make sure that it's like, Nicole, you got to meet them where they're at, which means you got to remember how it felt to be where they're sitting right now, where they're, you know, twitching out because they're a month in and they can't handle life. And like, you remember you were insane for the first 3 months because your body was still just trying to figure out how to function with nothing in it. And it was not handling that well. You know, so remember what that felt like so that you can resonate with it so that when they're really in the dumps, instead of just being like, but it gets better, it's fine, you'll be fine, meet them where they're at. And like, maybe they'll be more likely to grab that hand because you're not coming from above. You can be like, I'm going to get down here with you and we'll go up together, you know? And I can't remember where I'd heard it. I know it's a room somewhere, but I can't remember the first time I'd heard like the ladder or the stairwell analogy. And it's like, we're stuck in the dark. And we don't just call from above. My job as a sponsor to go fucking down there with them and grab them and be like, if you're ready, we can go. Like, you have to walk your fucking own ass up. I'm not going to carry you, but I'll hold your hand and we can go up together. But I'm going to come down with you so that I can level with you and be like, no, I know what that feels like. I've been there, but we don't have to stay here. And I can be your first representation of it, or the rooms can be your first representation. People around you can be a representation that you can make it out and find that little like glimmer of hope to ignite the willingness to then create all of the other actionable steps necessary to be like, we can come out of this together because we do it together. And like, yeah, it all hinges on the higher power, right? It all hinges on having God. But when we're struggling to find God and everyone around you. Look around the room and see God working, walking, talking, and shaking hands with everybody there. And you'll start to be able to see that little glimmer, right? And light that little flame. And then you're like, oh, this can grow because I can foster it and I can build it and it can be my little seed that starts in the dark that eventually sprouts in this beautiful fucking plant because I've given it everything it needs to grow, right? And like it lays it out. It makes it really simple. It's a very simple program that makes it incredibly hard and complicated because we try to overthink it and intellectualize it, right? And the God thing especially. I loved intellectualizing my God to the point that it was ineffectual because I was trying to think my way into understanding God. I mean, like, why'd you stop doing all the substances, Nicole? It's because you could feel, because you're supposed to feel God, not think God into existence. You're supposed to just feel that tiny little thing in there and build that up and let that grow and happen. And now I'm like, yeah, no, it's there. I can feel it. It's amazing. It's beautiful. But I have to bring myself back down to what it felt like to not feel that. And we'll build it slowly together, right? And you'll create your own. And like, I love listening to my sponsee's versions of God, right? I love being like, tell me what your God looks like. What do you want to name it? What do you want, what do you want it to feel like, look like, whatever you want. Just to give you something to roll with, something tangible. And so I love that you're just like, no, it's just the universe. It's nice and open. We don't try to, right? Because I figure you build whatever works for you. But yeah, like if looser works, then go looser. Because it is a lot easier, honestly. If anything can remind you of your God, then you can see it anywhere, right? And that resonated for me too. When people would say that, they're like, my God's like just nature. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I feel really connected to my dad who's passed away when I'm around trees and I hear like the breeze in the trees. Yeah, I feel like I hear him. That resonates. Okay, that can work. We can create that. Because I can't remember where it was or who suggested. I think it was my first sponsor actually that was like, do you have somebody significant to you that's not here anymore? And maybe they can be like your gateway to finding God. Because like they're not God. They lived in your life, but they're probably with God right now if they're not here anymore. And maybe that can be your segue. And I was like, that's beautiful. Yeah, because I love my dad and he's not here. That's accessible. I work my way through that angle.
Love that.
And then like, all right, I'll start talking to dad because I talk to him anyway all the time. And yeah, he can just pass on the message to this God thing. We'll like grow it through that. So I love that there's so many avenues because the book leaves it open. Like build it however you want. We don't care. But I had to talk to a bunch of people and harass a bunch of people about, okay, what does your version look like? What does your version look like? Because I just want out of this dark and I want to build it. So I'll do that with my sponsees now. I'll be like, here's my version, but also literally walk up to any woman that you think had a great share or great message or resonated and be like, tell me about your God. None of us are going to be like, no, I don't want to talk about God, the thing that saved my life and helps me every single day to be a good person and to have a life worth living. Like, nah, I'd rather not share with you about that. It's never happened in my experience.
Not really a problem in our room.
Right? Never happened in my experience. I would love to see it happen, frankly, just to be an interesting perspective shift. But I've never met somebody who's working this program who has a life worth living as a result of doing the work that doesn't want to talk about the thing that helped them get there.
Right. All just comes down to willingness.
Yes.
It's all, like, that's how simple it is. Just willingness. What a great conversation. I've really enjoyed this. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? I think that was a pretty solid convo.
Right? I mean, that was pretty solid. I was just checking with my gut and see. No, yeah, that feels like a natural place. Like I was like, sure, but like, no, that feels like totally other conversations.
You know what that means,
good,
don't
natural
you?
place.
Just means I'm going to have to bring you back.
I mean, I won't say no.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you for doing this. What a great conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. This is beautiful. It's not nearly as nerve-wracking once you start and just get it out. It's fantastic.
The first minute or two.
Right? You create a very nice, warm, and welcoming environment, too. So it's like it felt natural and fun. And, yeah, why wouldn't I want to talk about the thing that saved my life and made sure that I didn't go through with any of those thoughts and that I get to be here today to share in that and to actually enjoy the life I live. Like, yeah, I'll talk about that all the time.
Hell yeah. And of course, obviously, a special thanks to my wonderful producer who decorated this room. It makes it feel so comfortable. The vibe in here is just something else.
Yeah, because it's the, like, eclecticness of the
Right?
artwork. It's the different, yeah, like you're
I
right.
know.
It's got a whole energy to it, and
I
it's
know.
very
and
nice.
he built that. He's the best.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
What are we going to talk about next time?
I don't know.
I don't know
Yeah.
yet. Yes. Perfect. If you need help, reach out. See you next time. Peace.